Hey, what's going on guys? The Crypto Boars here. And in this short tutorial video, I just want to show you how to go about researching coins the right way so that you're not just blindly gambling away. Now, what I'm noticing, especially people on the VC, is that they're looking at their wallet tracking and they're taking that as the be all and end all. So if they see some whale like Cupsy buy into this, for instance, they'll, click on that and then end up aping in and FOMOing in and then end up getting dumped on. That's not how we want to trade. We want to trade way much more calculated. And the way to have as much higher success as possible is being able to understand the narratives, going into coins with good research on, what the narrative is, who's behind the project, who's the dev, checking the socials, and all that kind of stuff. That's way much more important than just, wallet tracking. I mean, what wallet tracking here is just a small part that you can use as confluence, but you should never just rely on that because you'll end up getting dumped on. Now, I've put a pin post of this in the trenches. Like the basic research that you probably already know is, identifying the coin, the name, the chart, the volume, holders, and all of that stuff. And obviously NeoBullX, this shows that right here. When you go into the holders, it will show you the top 10 holders, how much of the insiders are holding, and bundling and so forth. Now, you've got to bear in mind that even if a coin is bundled, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Like for instance, Troll was bundled by Shadow and their team, and that ran up to $30 and $40 million market cap. Okay, so you got to look at these things, but don't take it for full face value. The main thing that you need to find out about this is the socials, who's behind the project, how do they link to it, because that's going to be the main factor for driving it forward in terms of pumping it and the catalyst ahead for it. Okay, now I'm in my NeoBullX right now. What I'm going to show you real quick is a successful trade. I'll show you a few of them. So this is the one of my successful trades. It was based off an RWA project. This was called Tofi, and I made about $2,000 profit on it simply because I was able to spot a very good strong narrative. And at the time, I was able to identify that obviously RWA is very big, the utility that they had in place. So when I land on a token, the first thing I do is the basic check. Obviously, I check the top 10 holders, how much are the top 10 holding, making sure that they're not holding too much of the supply. We want to be checking things like the dev wallet being locked as well. Now, usually what the dev does once he launches a token, he would lock his supply on Streamflow and then he would tweet that out. So you want to make sure you check the socials for that. So for instance, like for Tofi, what I did was I just simply pasted the CA into X for further due diligence, right? And it's very important. And a lot of people don't do this. They just blindly ape in and they end up getting wrecked. We don't want to do that. We want to move way much more calculated. So that's why it's very important to put the CA into X, see what other people are saying, see if there's any FUD around it, see what the team are doing. So look, if you can either put the CA in or the hashtag of the ticker name. So you can see right here, if I just go down, you can see what people are saying. Great team, pretty bullish on it. And you want to check the dev's X account. So as you can see, this was very professional. You want to go down, they've got exchange listings and stuff. They address FUD as well and all that kind of stuff. So what I do, I have a full check of the socials, see who's behind the project, check out the website as well. That's very important. So it's not just some amateur-y website that got put up just to rug or farm. Look, the CA is on the website. So this was tokenized in RWA and they had some inbuilt utility here. Website and everything looks clean. And going down further on the page as well, you can see all of their updates and stuff that they've got here. Now, you got to bear in mind with meme coins, majority of them go to zero. So no matter how good of the tech is and utility, we're in a market where, a lot of people have that shiny object syndrome. So they like to come in and FOMO in when they see high volume. And then eventually, if it's a good project, say give it a day or two, eventually it will bleed and die out. You know what I mean? Unless it's a very, very strong narrative which is very, very rare. I know there was a coin recently called Your Mom, which did really well, and that was one of the runners of the day. So if I just go on to Your Mom, so right now that's at 6.7 million. Wow, incredible. And the holders are holding up really well. And as you can see from Tofi here, this pretty much nuked to 58k market cap. So even though everything on the outside looked good, like with the team being legit and everything, it's very important, and I stress this so many times, that you always want to take your initials and profits on the way up, because you never know which project can nuke. Do you know what I mean? With crypto, it's highly volatile and very, very risky. So you want to make sure you're always securing your initials and profits on the way up. So now what I want to do real quick is show you the strategy of how I was able to get my entry and then take profits. So as soon as this launched, you always get this initial spike where it pumps to like 1 million if it's a really good coin. So as you can see with Tofi, it went all the way up to 960k. And what I like to advise is that never ever top blast and FOMO in, unless it's a coin like Trump. Obviously that was completely different because that was the PvE runner. There wasn't no PvP there, so it's so easy just to top blast and make money off that. But majority of the times, it's way better just to wait for that dip. You want to buy the dips and then sell on the greens. It's just simple. Buy low, sell high. So you see right here, it went to like 900k and then it dumped down pretty much like 70%. Because there was a lot of exchange of hands here, because a lot of people like to just trade the chart. And there's people out there who like to research properly, come in, calculate, and then hold their position. You got to think about it. When you get into a coin that's legit and you hold it with conviction, you'll make way much more money than the person who's just scalping and trading it for a quick profit. Do you know what I mean? And that's how I was able to make $2,000, because I was able to hold this with conviction and then take way much more profits on the next legs up. So you can see right here, this pretty much dumped down. So if I just draw right here, this pretty much dumped down to like 80%. So what I did when it dumped down to like almost 70 to 80%, I monitored this closely, because I always like to see confirmation bounces. You know what I mean? So look, this dumped down all the way down to like 230k, and then it was consolidating for a little bit, and then it went to 700k. So that was like pretty much a 3x. I always like to see signs of confirmations. And there's two basic things to understand when it comes to trading price action. You want to look at areas of support and areas of resistance zones. Okay, support is an area of the price action where the previous times in price it was, where it bottomed out. So like for instance, this is areas of support right here. As you can see, it bottomed out here, it pumped all the way here, and that would be the resistance, and then it dumped down. So this would be the area of support. This would be the area of support. If I just draw this out on a rectangle triangle, so as you can see here, these bottoms here are areas of support, areas where you want to accumulate and buy, and then you want to sell on the resistance zone. So you can see right here, it pumped and then it dumped like 70%. It consolidated for a little while, and then it found this area of support right here, and then it pumped up. So then that would be your resistance zone. So resistance is the zones of price where we weren't able to go above and we got sold off from. Okay, so if I just draw here as a rectangle, so look, this would be a resistance, and then it then rejected and dumped down, and then this is support. It then pumped up and then it dumped down again, and that's your support level. And you just want to keep it basic, guys. You buy at support levels and then you sell at the key resistance levels. So you can see right here, I guess people were just figuring out, is this project for real or not? That's why there was that volatility of it dumping 70%. And then you can see right here, it had that big push up to like almost 2 mil. So it went from like 300k market cap to 2 mil. Now had you done your research properly, because you had that time period, there was a pretty much almost a 2-hour period where you could have done your research properly to find out if it's a legit project or not, got your entry, and then you could have held for a clean at 300k market cap for a clean 6 to 7x here, while taking initials and profits on the way up. Okay, so you can see, look, those areas of support. And then once we break resistance levels, the previous resistance becomes the support for the next level. So you can see right here, we pumped, we dumped down to support, it was consolidating a little bit, and then it broke through the resistance level. And then you can see right here, that becomes the support. So you can see right here, it breaks through resistance, and then look, this now becomes the support. You can see the bottoms right here. And then they're key support levels where it then bounces off from, and then that you would take your profit on these tops, on these resistance levels here. So if I just draw up here, and then look, these would then be key zones where you would take profit from. Okay, so if you bought, even if you bought right here at like 630k at the support, you could have taken profits all the way up from here. As you can see, look, these are the key resistance levels here, and then it rejects down, it dumps down to like 840k, and then that's your support. And what I like to do as well is I like to see a confirmation. So I generally like to come in on the second bounce. So even if you got in late here, like, look, I like to see a second confirmation. So this dumped, and then it was consolidating a little bit. So, and then it pumped up, and then it dumped again. What I would do is just, I'd wait for it to give me another confirmation, So like, look, this pumped here, it's had a second pump, it dumped down. So I wouldn't get in here. What I like to do is see if it pumps again, which it did. It pumped there, and then it dumped down again, and then this will be the level where I would kind of buy from, and I could have easily then just sold here, for a what's that? It's like a 2x. And usually what I like to do on good projects is take my initials and always have a moon bag, because you never know how high the project is going to go, and obviously you can never time the tops. But when I take my initials, it's pretty much a free ride, and the emotions are detached from the trade. Okay, I've seen a lot of people getting emotional when it comes to trading. They start revenge trading and stuff because they've had the opportunities to take profit and they don't. You gotta remember, with meme coins, it's all about taking profit and de-risking along the way, because you never know if the project could rug or not, no matter how good it is. So by simply following that strategy and understanding, who's behind the project, what it is, I was able to successfully make like $2,000 profit, which is about 13.7 SOL, because I simply understood the thesis behind it, what the utility is. I researched the website, I checked the socials, I checked who's behind it. So if I just show you my trades, I bought a little bit here, and then I DCA'd down because I thought it was a legit project, so I heavily bought here. And then as you can see, when it had that big pump up, because I already had strong conviction in the project, so I held it, and then I started taking profits aggressively when it hit like almost 2 mil, and this project actually went way much more higher. I think it tapped like 5 mil. So if I just go across here, yeah, as you can see, look, it went all the way to like 5 mil. What I like to do is I like to clip like 25% each time. Like with NeoBullX, this instant trade feature is pretty cool. You can clip along the way. You just clip 25%, and then it would clip it on the way up. You always want to be taking profit bit by bit on the way up, and never get too attached into the project as well. Once you've made your profit, never put money back into the chart. This is a mistake that myself and a lot of top traders have made as well. Like, once you've made a very good amount of profits, you'll think, there's an opportunity to scalp as well. Although you can scalp, it is very, very like risky, and the chances are like it's not going to have that same volume that you expect, in the initial stages of the launch. So what I like to do, once I've made my profit, I'm done with it, then I just sit on my hands and wait for the next strong narrative to come. I don't look too much into the like wallet tracking of who's buying what, because you got to bear in mind that a lot of these traders are just like dumping on their copy traders, or they're just farming and stuff. And you never want to go into a coin blindly. You want to make sure you check the socials, check the thesis behind it, check the narrative. Another example would be, let me just show you another coin called Up. Now, this was based off a person on X who had a big following account, and he's an influential figure. He was followed by CZ, and he had very strong mutuals. I made about 4 profit from this simply because I understood the thesis and narrative behind it, right? So when I put the ticker on X, I can see what other people are saying. What gave me strong conviction of this, I noticed that Thomas Wojiwoda, the CEO of MatchChain, which I'm guessing must be a big company, dropped up only. He's a legit Web3 founder with a big vision. MatchChain uses AI and blockchain to bring millions of users into crypto, and there's his LinkedIn profile. So that's the kind of research that you should be doing, and that's what kind of determines if the coin's going to pump really well or not. So this guy here, he's got loads of connections. He's got a verified LinkedIn. He's the founder and CEO of multiple billion-dollar companies, and all of his history and work and stuff shows right here. And then once you've seen that, you want to see who this guy is following. So look, if I just go on to his X account, I want to make sure it's not fake or anything like that. Check his mutuals. So I can see, look, BNB Chain are following him. Murad. Now we all know about Murad, believe in something, Murad's following him, and there's other big guys who are following him. So you want to kind of use that as confluence to help on with your research, and that's what made me bullish on this. Look, he's ex Binance, Scroll, Chainlink, NetApp, Microsoft. So he's worked at all of these big companies, and you want to pick these types of information because that's what's going to make your conviction much more stronger when you're holding on to a coin, making way much more bigger gains. And that's what happened on Uponi. Once I did all my research on that, I seen that the dev was based and he deployed it. Straight away I got in. So as you can see, I DCA'd in. I never ever top loss. I always like to wait for that 60-70% dip from the all-time highs. I'll then DCA in. So if I'm putting in 2 SOL, I'd go 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. And then I would just wait, because sometimes for narratives, it takes a little while for people to clock it and see what's going on and see who's behind it. And then what happened was Geiky blasted in. Now, if you don't know who Geiky is a big KOL and one of the best traders on CT. So I actually front ran Geiky, and Geiky, I think, put in like 5 to 10k. Let me just check. Yeah, here, look, $7,600 Geiky put in. As soon as Geiky blasted in, I then sold right into a candle. And that's what you call calculated trading. I literally clipped out 25%, 25%, 25%. And I was able to make like literally 4 SOL in the space of, when did I buy it? So I bought it 12:35 a.m. and then I was finished with the trade at 1:40. So in the space of an hour, I was able to make 4 SOL profit, simply because I understood who's behind the project, who's the dev, what connections does he have, what's his LinkedIn like is he legit, is he who he says he is, and then simply that formed my thesis and made my conviction stronger. And I could have made way much more money as well if I held on. You can see right here, look, it went all the way to 1.5 mil. And then obviously it dumped all the way down. So look, these are the support levels here. So look, you got support here. So you could have bought here and then sold the top at 1.45. And then it dumped all the way down to what, 400k. So that would have been the perfect range right here to accumulate a bag, and then you could have sold all the way up almost to 4x there. You could have taken profits there, at that resistance, and then boom, it dumped all the way down here. So you could have scalped that as well. So you could have bought again here, and then 877k went all the way up to 1.86 mil. These support levels you could have bought, sold on the top. You could have bought here and then sold at the top here. Either way, you would have made profit earlier on had you done your research the way that I just showed you right now. Going on to X, checking the socials, seeing what other people are saying about it. More importantly, checking who deployed it. This guy deployed it. His credentials look pretty legit. X Binance, Chainlink, NetApp, etc. You want to look at his followers. You want to look at his link tree if he has it. look on his LinkedIn, who he's connected with. That type of stuff is how you want to research in order to kind of front run good narratives, rather than just, going on to NeoBullX, seeing who's aping what Waddles is aping this whale's aping this, and then just aping in and then just getting dumped on, because you're just going to end up being exit liquidity for all these whales that you're tracking. Tracking whales, it's important, but only a little bit, only to use as confluence to actually see who's behind the project and stuff like that. But generally what I've found is that if you can front run these whales who are aping in, like the less KOLs on the project, the better it is for you to make much more profits. If you get in when all of the whales have got in, like Gakey, Cupsy, Waddles, if you get in when you see all of those wallets, you're likely just to be exit liquidity, unless you're scalping, you get on a dip, 60-70% dip, and then you're scalping like 40%, 50% on the way up. But that's how I like to do my research, the correct way. So once you've done your basic checks of the holders, what the dev's holding, how much of the supply the top holders are holding, make sure they're not holding too much of the supply, make sure the distro is clean, you want to check the bubble maps, and then the most important part is checking the socials, putting the CA into X, seeing who's behind the project, checking their credentials, seeing what the link is between them and the project, and the potential catalysts ahead. And then that should then form a strong enough thesis for you to be able to even come in with size. Now, I'm not recommending, if you're just starting out, please do not come in with size, start full point, because you're going to blow your port fast. If you've got, say, 5 Solana that you're playing with, you want to be small aping like 0.2. Do you know what I mean? You never ever want to be putting in like more than like 10-15% in. Do you know what I mean? On trades, because you want to be able to have longevity in your portfolio, right? Especially when you're playing small, it's all about building small, consistent wins and profits. Your main goal is to like take profits. Just like as I was showing you here, like these opportunities on the dips where you want to, accumulate on the dips and then sell the highs. You've got lower highs, and then you're selling the highs. Yeah, you're selling the highs, And then once you're at a point where you've accumulated a lot of SOL, so say you've only started on a 5 SOL port, you managed to turn that into 50 SOL, and then you can start sizing in. I'm talking about, say, 0.5 per trade, 0.5, or maybe even 1 SOL a trade, if the narrative is super, super strong. It's all about weighing it all up. You have to see how strong the narrative is, who's behind the token, how much volume is getting, and all of that kind of stuff. But you generally, what I like to say is small ape, take your initials on the way up, because then it allows you to de-risk from the trade and take the emotions away, and then always take profit bit by bit on the way up. So now I want to show you a recent coin called Your Mom. Now this was actually the runner of the day, you know what I mean? Like this launched yesterday, and look, it's already held up at 6.24 million. So usually I like to see less KOLs on the tokens. So as you can see, only Gakey is in and Dante. Cupsy and Waddles and those other guys, they probably did come in at an earlier stage, but there was a lot of exchange of hands earlier on, because those type of traders just like to pump and then dump straight away, But as you can see, this withstood the test of times, and now it's on 6 mil. So the narrative must be pretty damn good, right? So like what I like to do is go on X, put in the CA on X, research it more. Like, why did this hold up? What's the thesis behind it? Why are so many people holding on to it still? Because majority of the coins, I'd say 95% of the meme coins, they pretty much rug and go to zero after, like, it depends, either minutes, hours, if it's a good narrative, sometimes a day at max, and then it just nukes down, But this one is just actually standing the test of times here. So you can see on X what people are saying. We get coins like this 2 to 3 years with a perfect law. You can see and gather all the research here, and then that would form your conviction. Somebody's saying here, I think your mom is about to take the throne as the cork narrative. People love OG memes, and even stuff like this that I've held up, you can even scalp these type of plays, you know, because they're still getting volume, they're still holding up. People on CT realize that. So like you can see with your mom, it's at 9 million, right? So if this retraces another 50%, what you could do is that you could draw a line. So what I like to do is click price range here, and you can see the price range is basically, I'll show you where this is. If you go on to this little pattern tool here, you go down and you click on price range and you'll be able to see that. So what I like to do is kind of draw it from the highs. So I'll just click here, right here. I'll draw it here. And so my level of where I want to get in. So let's say I set it to like 50%. So basically I need this to dump down to 4.36 million in order for me to have entry. And then obviously with NeoBullX, you can set your buy amount. You know, you can set it up here and then place your order here, or you just wait for it to come down and then you can buy, you know. But generally I like to see it dip to at least 50 to 60% before I get in, and then I can scalp it. You know, I know there's coins out there that will dump say 30 to 40% and then they'll move up and up, but they're coins which first get deployed like within the first half an hour. But coins like this, I recommend wait for like a 50 to 60% dip, get in, and then you'll be able to scalp it. Alright guys, so this wraps it up for this tutorial video. I hope this has been helpful. Please do apply the strategy, the principles and the thoughts that I'm telling you here. It's very, very important to ensure your trading success. You know, you want to make sure, especially in markets like this where there's so many rogues, so many devs farming, you have to move extra calculate here. You have to take research very, very serious, because that's the difference between, say for instance, making a 2x or a 10x. You know, like if I just go back onto Tofi real quick, like Tofi obviously now is nuked. It's like 60k market cap, but the top of this was like I think 5-6 mil. So if I just go on to the 15-minute and look, you can see this topped out at 5.5 million. You know, my entry was like 450k. You know, so that was actually a clean 10x, but obviously I took profits early because I just preferred taking profits way much more earlier. But that's what I'm saying, that's the potential there. When you're getting in on coins which have a good solid narrative and stuff, you could actually catch those clean 10 to 20x's, as opposed to just aping in randomly and gambling away and just hoping, you know, hoping for that 50% increase, hoping not to get dumped on. You know, we want to move very, very calculated here. And also to bear in mind, even though a project can be legit, it's a lot of them will go to like zero. Like you can see Tofi eventually a nuke to 57k market cap, because nothing is long term in crypto. That's just the nature of it. And as a meme coin trader, you want to be able to get in, spot the narrative early, spot who's behind the project and the legitimacy of it, get your position early, and then take profits as quick as possible on the way up. Alright guys, so this wraps it up for this video. I hope this has been very helpful. We will have more tutorial videos and all that good stuff in future. But please do take action, and if you've got any questions, do let me know. Myself, Ty and the team, we're all here to help you succeed with this. So let's go guys, let's keep cooking.